A man walks into a bar. It sounds like the start of a joke, but sometimes reality is far stranger than fiction. On an ordinary night, one man stepped into the glow of neon lights and vanished without a trace. There was no exit footage, no credit card activity, no body, nothing. One moment he was there, smiling, alive, surrounded by friends. The next he was simply gone, leaving behind only questions and a chilling silence. This is the story of Brian Shaffer, a promising young medical student whose disappearance would become one of the most baffling mysteries in modern history. As the night unfolded, every detail seemed ordinary, until the moment everything changed. In the heart of a bustling university campus, surrounded by friends and the promise of spring, Brian's life took a turn into the unknown. What happened that night would haunt his family, friends, and investigators for years to come. Brian Shaffer was a man on the cusp of realizing his dreams. At 27, he was a dedicated second-year medical student at Ohio State University with a bright future as a doctor. He was intelligent, well-liked, and deeply in love with his girlfriend, Alexis Wagoner. They had big plans, starting with a trip to Miami to celebrate the beginning of spring break, but a shadow hung over Brian's life. Just 3 weeks earlier, his mother, Renee, had lost her battle with cancer. The loss was devastating, and the grief was still raw. This spring break wasn't just a vacation, it was a much-needed escape. A chance to heal and look toward the future he and his mother had so often discussed. The night of Friday, March 31st, 2006, marked the end of a grueling week of exams. With his studies temporarily lifted, Brian was ready to celebrate. The evening began with dinner with his father, Randy, before he headed out for a night on the town. Later, he met up with his friend, William Clint Florence. Their plan was simple, a classic night of bar hopping through Columbus's vibrant arena district to blow off steam. They started at a few spots, sharing drinks and laughs, enjoying the freedom of the first night of break. As the night wore on, they decided to head to one last place, the Ugly Tuna Saloona. It was a popular, sprawling bar on the second floor of the South Campus Gateway complex. Critically, the bar had only one public entrance and exit, a long escalator. Every person who went in and every person who came out had to use it. At approximately 1:15 a.m., a security camera captured Brian Shaffer riding that escalator. He wore a distinctive short-sleeved shirt, jeans, and a relaxed smile. He looked up into the camera lens, a fleeting image of a man completely unaware he was about to vanish from the face of the earth. Inside the crowded bar, Brian and Clint became separated. Just before closing time at 2 a.m., Clint tried to find Brian to leave. He called his phone, but it went straight to voicemail. He waited outside with the dispersing crowds, assuming Brian would soon emerge. But the security cameras held one final, tantalizing clue. At 1:55 a.m., Brian is seen on camera just outside the bar's entrance, chatting with two women. After a moment, he turns and walks back toward the entrance of the Ugly Tuna Saloona, seemingly to re-enter. This single action is the last confirmed sighting of Brian Shaffer. He walked toward that door and into an enduring mystery. Later that night, his friends assumed he had gone home or left with someone. But the next morning, Brian's phone went straight to voicemail. He never contacted his girlfriend, Alexis, who he was supposed to go on a trip with that Monday. His family reported him missing. Police reviewed the footage. Brian is clearly seen entering the bar, but there is no footage of him leaving. The only exits were under surveillance. He simply vanished. Police were stumped. There was no evidence of foul play, no suspicious individuals, no use of his bank card, no phone activity, no social media posts. Cadaver dogs searched nearby dumpsters and construction areas. Nothing. He didn't have his passport. His car was still at his apartment. He hadn't packed anything. Clint, his friend who was with him that night, refused a polygraph test and lawyered up. That raised a lot of eyebrows. With every logical avenue exhausted, investigators were left with a chilling void. With every logical avenue exhausted, investigators were left with a chilling void. What could explain how a man walks into a bar and simply ceases to exist? The case became a breeding ground for speculation, with theories ranging from the plausible to the paranormal. Theory 1. Escaped intentionally. The first theory is that Brian chose to disappear. Proponents point to the immense pressure of medical school and the raw grief from his mother's recent death. Could this combination have pushed him to seek a new life, free from sorrow? Perhaps he saw an opportunity that night to slip away and start over. But this theory quickly unravels. Why vanish without a word to his loving father and brother? And what about Alexis? He was deeply in love, with a ring ready for their upcoming trip to Miami. These aren't the actions of a man severing all ties. Furthermore, his bank accounts remained untouched, his car was left behind, and his apartment was full of his possessions. To vanish so completely, with no financial trail or evidence of planning, seems almost as impossible as disappearing from a locked room. Theory 2, foul play inside the bar. If Brian didn't leave on his own, the next conclusion is foul play. The bar was crowded and chaotic, a perfect environment for an altercation to go unnoticed. Suspicion fell on his friend Clint Florence, who claimed they got separated. Clint's subsequent refusal to take a polygraph test and his lack of cooperation raised questions that have never subsided. Did he know more? Then there was the bar's potential secret exit. An emergency door, unmonitored by cameras, opened into a sprawling construction site. Did Brian use this exit and meet with an accident? Or was he lured out by an assailant, his body hidden within the site, forever entombed in concrete? Yet a thorough search of the site yielded nothing, and despite hundreds of patrons, no one reported seeing a fight or anything unusual involving Brian. For him to be murdered and removed from a busy bar without a single witness seems an extraordinary feat. Theory 3, something supernatural. When logic fails, the mind turns to the inexplicable. This is the most unsettling theory, that something supernatural occurred. It's a theory born from the ashes of every failed investigation. How can a man be in one place and then simply not be? The security footage is a digital ghost story. We see him walk in, but he never walks out. It's as if he stepped through a door into another dimension. Was he abducted? Did a glitch in the matrix occur, a momentary tear in reality that swallowed him whole? These ideas persist because the alternative, that our logical world allowed a man to simply evaporate, is almost harder to believe. The complete lack of physical evidence, no body, no weapon, no trace, feeds this narrative. It wasn't just a clean crime, it was a perfect erasure. For some, the ugly Tuna Saloona wasn't just a bar that night, it was a place where the laws of physics were momentarily suspended, the lingering mystery. For years, Brian's father, Randy, dedicated his life to finding his son. The pain of not knowing was a constant burden. Then, in 2008, a cruel flicker of false hope. On a digital memorial for Brian, a comment appeared, traced to the U.S. Virgin Islands, suggesting Brian was alive. For a moment, the world held its breath. But investigators determined the post was a heartless prank, extinguishing the brief glimmer of light. The story takes an even more tragic turn. Just months later, Randy Shaffer was killed in a freak accident during a storm. He went to his grave without ever knowing the fate of his beloved son. The one person who fought the hardest for Brian was gone, and the mystery was left to linger. colder and more silent than ever before. As years stretched into more than a decade, hope dwindled. But in 2020, technology offered a new, albeit faint, glimmer. Using advanced AI, investigators and online sleuths created age-progressed images of what a 41-year-old Brian might look like. The hauntingly realistic photos circulated online, a digital search party hoping to spot a ghost in the modern world. For a moment, it felt like a breakthrough was imminent. But like every lead before, the effort yielded nothing. The digital trail went as cold as the physical one. The ugly Tuna Saluna, the last place Brian was ever seen, is now a ghost itself. The bar closed its doors years ago, its infamous escalator leading to nowhere. The physical heart of the mystery has been erased as the city of Columbus moved on. But Brian's memory clings to the periphery. His face still peers from weathered missing person posters, faded by sun and time, a quiet, persistent question mark in a city that has no answers. For those left behind, the lack of resolution is a wound that never heals. His girlfriend, Alexis Wagoner, who received his final phone call, eventually had to move forward. She is since married, but has said she still thinks of Brian. A life interrupted and a story without an end. His brother Derek is now the only surviving member of their immediate family, left to carry the weight of this enduring tragedy alone. No one felt that weight more than Brian's father, Randy. For 2.5 years, he was the relentless engine of the search, a father on a desperate mission. He pursued every lead, consulted psychics, and never stopped believing he would find his son. Then, in a cruel twist of fate in 2008, Randy was killed in a freak accident during a storm. The search's most passionate advocate was gone, dying without ever knowing what happened to Brian, a second devastating tragedy. With Randy's death, the case lost its most powerful voice and grew colder than ever. Today it remains one of the most perplexing unsolved mysteries in recent history. The facts defy logic. A man enters a bar with one public exit covered by a camera and is never seen again. No evidence, no witnesses, no trace. Theories abound: that he slipped out a service exit, that he was a victim of foul play inside, or that he orchestrated a perfect escape from his own life. But they remain just that, theories. We are left with the same impossible question that has echoed for years. How can someone vanish in a place full of cameras, lights, and witnesses, and leave behind not a single clue? If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Brian Shaffer, please contact the Columbus Police Department. Do you think Brian planned his escape? Or did something much more sinister happen that night? Let me know your theory in the comments. Subscribe for more real stories that'll leave you haunted. You never know which one might hold the clue that cracks the case.